In the summer of 1974, dozens of First Nations youth, led by the Ojibway Warriors Society, headed by Louis Cameron, launched an armed occupation of Anicinabe Park. At 20 years old, Sally Skead was one of them.
It was a hard time for our people at the time. There was a lot of violence towards our people at the time, and a lot of the young people were tired of it.
On National Indigenous Peoples Day, she is among the surviving veterans being honored on the 50th anniversary of the occupation. That summer, on the lands now known as Kenora, Ontario, the occupiers voiced their demands: better housing, employment opportunities, and an overhaul of the Department of Indian Affairs, to name a few. They were also calling for the return of the Anicinabe Park lands they claimed were illegally bought and sold by the city in 1959.
And this Anicinabe Park, that used to be our land. They used to have an Indian house here, and all the Anishinaabe people would come here in the summertime, and they would have ceremonies, healing ceremonies.
Eddie Mandamin was 10 years old, attending a nearby residential school during the occupation. He recalls the abuse he endured worsening at that time.
But I consider my time for that was I was part of the warriorship. Although we weren't part of the occupation here, but we were still held prisoners in the residential school, and because of the park here, they made our lives miserable for the summer.
The occupation brought issues faced by First Nations in Treaty 3 to center stage. One of them was the mercury contamination of Grassy Narrows First Nation. Over half a century later, the issue persists, with around 90% of its members displaying symptoms of mercury poisoning.
The only thing we're asking for is equality. That's what I want, is equality. To be able to be treated like all other Canadians.
50 years on, the veterans say much has changed for the better.
If you really look at Kenora, we actually came a long ways. Over the last 50 years, we took care of some of the houses. We got a lot of First Nations living in Kenora. We have a lot of Treaty 3 police officers that are now homeowners in Kenora. They hired me as a new Indigenous Relation Officer to help with the Truth and Reconciliation. So I think the movement that this present council has is very proactive.
In his lifetime, Mandamin hopes he'll witness the return of the park lands to their original stewards, the Anishinaabe of Treaty 3.
One of my things is to actually do the land back, because this was the actual first land back initiative in North America in 1974, the very first one. And this should be celebrated with that historical content of that land back happened here.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.